Sometimes we all feel a little rough. Maybe you've just lost your joy and have no idea how to get it back. Maybe you're feeling bombarded with anxious thoughts and worries that seem to linger in your mind. Do you ever find yourself grieving with sadness and feel like there's no way out? Or maybe you're afraid of the future and all of the chaos surrounding you. We're all full of emotions, but the question is, what can we do about it? Mixed emotions, how to deal with what we feel.
So I think we all have those moments, right, in life where things are going good. Everything seems to be in its rightful place. There seems to be no issues, no weird things around the corner. Everything seems to be going our way. But then there are those moments where life surprises us, doesn't it? Some things come out of nowhere and begin to reshape the way that we're living, the way that we're thinking, the way that we deal with things. I mean, our world is full of all kinds of things right now that have us feeling all kinds of feelings. Like, think about this. Think about your relationships, right? Like, maybe your relationships were going good, but maybe somebody gave you some news and things got really messy, right? Like, it got complicated, right? Like everything was going fine with your kids or your spouse, and then you had that argument or you had that word said and just things got weird, right? How about this? Maybe finances. Like you had your finances in order, and then all of a sudden you got hit with that random bill, right, that came in the mail. And you want to ignore it. You want to pretend it's not there, but it just keeps showing up. And you look at your bank account, and it's getting worse and worse. And you're like, what happened? I thought I was doing good. We finally had money in the bank, and now my credit cards are maxed out, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to survive in this economy, right? Things get messy, right? Well, how about this? What if everything's going well and then somebody texts you or you get that phone call and you thought things were going well and then they share some news with you that you were not expecting. You weren't expecting them to come and send that text, make that call. Okay, that's enough, all right? And you just got this news from the doctor, or you got this news from your parents, or you got this news from your kids. They left you in a mess, and you didn't know what to do about it. Or how about this? Everything seemed to be going fine, and all of a sudden, life just bogged you down. You were scared about your future. You were wondering what's going to happen with your job or what's going to happen next, and you're wondering what's going to happen. Security. and okay, just... No. And it got messy, right? All these things that you thought were doing fine, and life happens. I think they get the point, all right? Life just... life just happens. And life gets messy, doesn't it? And it's so hard to describe what's going on inside, because inside we got all these feelings, all these emotions that are happening, but nobody can see them. But on the outside, everything looks fine. Everything's going good. And on the inside, we don't even know how to express what we're feeling. We just know it's not good. So today what I thought would help us all realize is there's a lot going on the inside that we need to know what it feels like on the outside. And I think this today does a great job of how we're feeling inside, doesn't it? We feel a mess. We're like, what are we going to do about this? We're like, man, I wish somebody else would fix this. I wish all this would just go away. But we know that it doesn't happen like that, does it? Life just happens. Life gets hard, and we're left with this mess of trying to figure out what to do with it. How do we feel about it? What do we do to get the help that we need? Ever been there? Maybe some of us are there today. Maybe you experience a lot of this mess this week, and you're picking up the pieces and trying to figure out what your future looks like and how you're just going to make it through another day. Well, just to let you know, you're in good company, because I think all of us feel this way. And all of us need to figure out, how do we deal with these emotions that come our way all the time? It's like a popular Chris Stapleton song I recently heard. It's called Untangle My Mind. And don't we feel like that, right? Like, I just wish somebody would take this mess and untangle it, fix it all back up, and I wouldn't have to deal with this anymore. And I think all of us are wanting solutions to this, and we don't know what to do about it. Recent stats have said this, that 9 out of 10 people in society right now have trouble staying sane. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you for cleaning my beard. I appreciate it, Ed. Ed helps with everything around here, you can see. There's been an exponential increase in anxiety across all ages, so no one is exempt from this. 3 times more likely to experience depression and anxiety and worry than any other previous generation. And all of these worries, anxieties, this mess is causing all sorts of issues for us. It's causing all sorts of physical issues, spiritual issues, relational issues, emotional issues, and we're left figuring this stuff out and not knowing what to do. So today, what we wanted to do is take a few moments just to address the elephant in all of our rooms for a moment. The stuff that's going on the inside that we have yet to talk about or yet to figure out, and to really wonder, does God even care about these things? And I think all of us over the next few weeks are going to be encouraged as we look at God's word and study God's word of what God has to say about all of the things that we deal with on a daily basis. Now, I know a 30-minute talk at church isn't going to solve all your problems or clean up all your mess, but I hope that over the next few weeks that we learn some things that give us some good tools, that refresh us of God's truth, and help us go back to God's word to figure out how do we deal with the mess that we're all experiencing. And so today, we're kicking off a brand new series called Mixed Emotions, how to deal with what we feel, how to deal with the mess that all of us are dealing with every single day. Because these emotions are in our lives whether we like it or not. And honestly, some of them aren't as bad as we think they are. Some of them are check engine lights for our lives to let us know that something's up, something we need to pay attention to, something we need to address. It's letting us know, hey, pay attention to that, get the help that you need. And some of them help us in life. They give us joy despite our sorrow. They give us help in the times of need. And so we're going to tackle all these emotions that we deal with over the next few weeks as we go into this series. But today's topic is probably the most popular topic of this whole series that I get a lot of questions about, and maybe you have a lot of questions about today, is how do we deal with this ongoing rapid increase of anxiety, of worry, of these emotions that we don't know how to deal with? And so today, since this emotion is such on a rise more than it ever has been, I figured let's go ahead and tackle that one first this week, and let's begin to look at the mess that we have and figure out what God has to say about it. And so we're going to look at a passage today found in the New Testament of our Bibles in the book of Philippians. It's one of my favorite books in the Bible. It's written by a guy named Paul. He's an earlier Christian writer of much of our New Testament, and he's writing to these churches, these places in which he's got some connections with that he helped plant over the years. And Philippians actually is one of those places that he first started a Jesus community in. And this place is growing, but they're experiencing a large amount of persecution and trial because of their faith. And so one of the guys from from Philippi, comes and visits Paul in prison. Paul is there because of his faith, and this guy is encouraging him, helping him, even blessing him with some things to help him along his journey. And so Paul writes to this church in Philippi, and he begins just to give them some encouragement and begin to give them some wisdom of how they're going to continue to face the things that they're facing. Because I can't imagine being there in that day, the amount of anxiety these people are facing as they're getting persecuted for their faith. Now, our issues don't look like their issues today, but Paul gives them some reminders of some things that they should put in place when they're facing emotions and when we're facing emotions to begin to help us during those times of need. And so we're going to look at that together today as we study God's word. So if you have a Bible, turn to the book of Philippians, and we're going to look towards the end of the book there. We're going to look at chapter 4 together today. So Philippians chapter 4, and I'm going to continue to try to remove some of this mess as y'all continue to like, how do we take this dude seriously now? So Philippians chapter 4, and we're going to look at verses 4 through 9 together. It says this: rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious. Everybody say anxious. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, he says, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And it says this: then the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and guard your minds in Christ Jesus. He continues by saying, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, and whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever is admirable, anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. And then he finishes this by saying, and the God of peace will be with you. So, a lot in this passage for us to unpack today, for us to go through. But many of you may have checked out of this passage the second you heard the phrase, be anxious about nothing, because you're like, well, that's good for Paul. I'm glad he can do that, but you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know my experiences or my situations or circumstances. There is no way that I cannot be anxious about nothing. That seems impossible. And to a certain degree, I would agree with you, because we have a lot to be anxious about these days. But this word that Paul puts in this passage goes well beyond just being anxious over something. This word actually is found in the Greek, and this is where it gets a little lost in translation when it comes to our English language and translating the Bible. But the Greek word for this is mermo, which simply means to worry or anxious or to have this ongoing distraction, okay? And so it's this idea that something is lasting, that it is perpetually there all of the time, that you're always anxious, you're always worrying, you're always distracted. And Paul is encouraging this group of people to not have an ongoing state of anxiety, to not be anxious about everything. And for there to be this idea that there's some things that we can put into practice to help us with what we're going through. And there's some great things that Paul lays out that I want to briefly go through with you today to help us all, because I believe all of us on some level experience some sort of anxiety. And for us today, I want us to walk through this to begin to get some new refreshers or tools that we need to deal with it when it comes. Now, I want to say this, just a disclaimer up front. I'm not a doctor. I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. I went to seminary. I am a pastor, okay? So just want to lay that out there for everybody. There are some of you that the miracle that you need in your life maybe would be seeing a counselor or a therapist, or maybe getting the medications that you need to help you because your anxiety is beyond your control. And listen, so much of the church world has dismissed that for so long. But let me just say this, getting the help that you need can be one of the most courageous things that you can do. And so let me just say that I don't want to put a Bible Band-Aid on things that you're experiencing or going through today. I want to walk along with you in this journey over the next few moments, and for us all to learn some tools and things that we need. But if you need help beyond this, please get the help that you need with the emotions that you're going through, because I believe all of us can get better in this way. And I want us all, as I took time this week to learn, to seek, to research, and to pray about this topic, because I know this is a big one for a lot of us to struggle with and deal with, that I believe Paul's encouragement to all of us can help all of us deal with anxiety on no matter what level we may struggle or deal with it today. So just want to put that disclaimer out there, and I hope today is helpful for all of us as we walk through this together. So let's look at the first thing that Paul instructs us to do. When anxiety starts to come over our lives, what do we do about it? What's the first step? And you may say, oh, this is super simple and very spiritual, but let me just help you unpack this for a minute. The first thing he teaches us to do is to pray. To pray. He tells us to go to God, to cast our cares to him, because listen to this, prayer is powerful. When we find ourselves in a mess, not knowing what to do, the first person that we should want to go to is God. He's the one who created us. He's the one who knows us better than we know ourselves. So why wouldn't we go to him first? A lot of times what we do is God is our last resort when he should be our first line of defense. And so God understands and knows you better than you know yourself. We should all want to go to him first to get the help that we need. And prayer oftentimes can be just a last-ditch effort, and we don't know what the perfect words to say, but we started a series at the beginning of the year on prayer, and we talked about this, that you don't have to say the perfect words, you don't have to be in the perfect place. Literally, because of what Jesus did for us, we have direct access to God to go to him and talk to him about anything. How amazing is that? That the God who created everything, created you and me, wants to be in relationship with us. That he cares about what you and I are going through every single day, and he wants to listen to us. How amazing is that? But how rarely do we ever take him up on it? Listen to what Paul says in this passage when he started. He says, do not be anxious about anything, right? But that's that ongoing state of anxiety. He wants us to begin to find tools to help us. He says, but in every situation, not just some situations, not just some circumstances, not when you feel like praying about it, but every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. Present them to God. God, here is my mess. Here is my struggles. Here's what I'm dealing with. And it says this, when we do that, the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and what? Your minds. God will guard our minds when we go to him in prayer. How amazing is that we have a God who does that? Now, the problem is a lot of times we don't view God the way that we should view God. Sometimes we view God as like this little God, right? Like, okay, God, like if I'm struggling or I have issues, I'll go to you and I will bring this mess to you. Here's my worries, here's my anxieties, here's my struggles. God, I don't know if you can quite handle it. And we just kind of set it there and we're like, okay, God, you deal with it. I'll pray about it. And then like 10 seconds later, we're like, okay, did God fix my issues? Nope. Okay, I'm going to take those back now and carry them around the rest of the week and just continue to worry myself to death. Anybody else do that? Right? Because we have this very small view of God. We're like, God, you can't handle that. God, you don't know what I'm going through. God, you don't know what I dealt with last week. God, you don't know these thoughts that I think. And the truth is, God knows it all. And so we may think that God is this small thing that doesn't care, but the truth is, the bigger view we have of God, the more that we realize that he is there for us no matter what. And so watch this. If we take our mess, our problems, our anxious thoughts, our worries, and we have this big view of God, like he's the creator of everything and that he loves us and cares for us, look what happens. We don't even see our worries and our fears and anxieties anymore. Yeah, we may still cover it, we may not know what to do with it, but look, God cares enough that he covers it for us. And when we give it to God, we don't have to worry about it anymore. Now, does that mean everything's going to be perfect? No. But we have a God who cares, who loves us, and wants to be there for us. But we have to be willing to take our mess and give it to him. The more you and I hold on to this, the more we're going to drive ourselves crazy, right? And some of you know this feeling because you have these thoughts every single week that you have yet to let go of. Whatever your mess is today, God can handle it. And he wants to handle it with you and walk with you in the midst of whatever you're going through. I love A.W. Tozer said this, sometimes we get overwhelmed and we just forget how big God is. Isn't that true? Well, the second we get anxious thoughts, worries, anxieties, we're covered in our mess, we forget just how big our God is. And today, God is big enough to cover whatever thoughts that you have and whatever you have going on. You can trust him to handle it. Your worries, cares, anxious thoughts. Prayer is powerful. And so that's our first line of defense. When we have our issues, when we're like, okay, what do I do first? We give it to God. And we know that he will cover it with us in prayer. But we got to have this big view of God. The second thing that Paul tells us to do is to pause. Everybody say pause. Pause. You and I run in life way too fast, don't we? We go, we do all these things. We constantly, our schedules are maxed out, and we never hardly take time just to pause, do we? To think about all the things that we're going through or experiencing. Sometimes just taking a moment to breathe, allow yourself to calm down and figure out what it is that you're feeling, what it is that you're triggered by, what it is that you're overwhelmed by. Because a lot of us, what we like to do is just pretend it away. We like to say, oh, no one sees this. If I can just keep everything together, if I can do this, I got this by myself. And we just keep going. And eventually this mess catches up with us, doesn't it? And we end up in a meltdown, or we end up, exploding, having feelings we never thought we could feel, all these things, because we never take time to really process what our emotions are trying to tell us. Our emotions are there for a reason. Sometimes good, bad, or indifferent, but sometimes they're trying to tell us things, but we don't take time, slow down long enough to figure out maybe what God is trying to do in our lives. And so when we pause, we take time to figure out what this mess could be about. Now, just to get scientific with you for a minute, I don't know much about this, but I did enough research this week to show you some cool slides on a screen, okay? So you have a lot of pieces in your brain that do all kinds of cool stuff, right? You have this one part, this almond-shaped piece in your mind. It's called the amygdala, and it's wired for survival. It's in that situation where something's going wrong, this little thing kicks in, and it throws this doses of adrenaline into your life. This is that part of your brain that's the fight or flight, like, what do I do about this? Be on guard, be alert, be aware. It's situations like this, like if you're on a walk and you see a snake starting to come up, right? And your amygdala kicks in and goes, homie, watch out. That thing's going to get you. And you start to back away, and your brain starts telling your body to do things. Or maybe for some of you, you just freeze, right? You don't even know what to do. You're like, get that thing away from me. That's me every time at the zoo when I go with my kids. It's telling us that be alert, something is happening. Or maybe you're driving and you see the person next to you texting. And you're watching and you're going, oh no, I hope they don't swerve into my car right now. And you start to see them get closer and closer. This little piece of your brain starting to tell you, beware, be wary, don't let them hit you, merge in the other lane, or beep the horn, or, get off the highway. Or maybe for you, it's the alarm that goes off at home, and you get up, and all of a sudden you don't know what to do. And so you either grab a baseball bat or you run around in circles. I don't know what you do in those moments, but normally we're scared. We wake up and we're like, what is that noise? And we're trying to figure out what to do. Well, that part of the brain likes to have some battles with another part of the brain, which is known as our prefrontal cortex. This is the very logical part of the brain. This is the part of the brain that it tells you that things are going to be okay, that noise at night wasn't an intruder, it was just your cat making weird noises, right? It's that everything's not out to get you, that it kicks in and says, have some common sense about this. Danger may be there, but there's things that are right in the world. And so just these two parts of the brain have a lot going on all of the time, and they're trying to send you signals and all kinds of things to allow you to process your thoughts. But how are you supposed to know what all is going on up here if you don't take time to slow down to really figure out what's going on? A lot of us, we like to think we're invincible. We can just handle it all. We can just keep going. But at some point, we got to slow down and begin to pause and really consider, what are our brains, our bodies, and emotions trying to tell us? One of the people I love to learn more from, her name is Carolyn Leaf. She has got a whole bunch of letters before her name, more than I ever will. And she's a doctor, therapist, all this stuff. And she lays out in her book, Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess, some great steps for us. And she literally talks about how you and I, when we can go to God and pray to him, and while we can pause, helps us rewire our brains to think differently. And I love the chart that she gives in her book. If you like science, nerdy kind of stuff, she's a great person to read some of her books. But she gives the 5 steps of the neurocycle. And here's what she talks about when we pause. Here's some things that you and I should do. The first thing is that we should gather awareness. We should look around, gather awareness, pause, become aware of all of the warning signs that our brains and bodies are trying to tell us physically and emotionally, what's coming at us externally and how it's affecting us internally, right? Like some of this stuff, we don't know how it's affecting us internally until we take time to pause and to think about it. The next thing that she tells us to do is to make sure to take time to reflect, to understand why this is happening. And sometimes that's just simply pausing to think about what our brains and bodies are trying to tell us. And then I love the next phrase is to write it out. And this isn't like, write out all my feelings, or write a gratitude list to God so I'm not mad at my kids today, I love them. This is like literally taking raw feelings unedited and writing them down. I'm mad today. Here's what's happened. God, I am overwhelmed by this. It's driving me crazy when this person is doing this. Just writing it out, no filter, just putting it on paper, because there's something sometimes about looking at what we're feeling and processing. And writing it out can be the greatest tool. Now, guys, I know we have a hard time, especially processing our feelings. And I hated it when someone told me to write out my thoughts. But it's so funny. The second I write them out, it helps me actually begin to express what it is that I am feeling and begin to deal with it. After that, once we begin to write it out, the next step is to recheck. And that's to reframe. What are these thoughts? What are true? And what are not true? What are things that I need to deal with, and what are some things that I don't need to deal with? And then lastly on here is to active reach, and that's going to lead us into the next thing that Paul talks about, but it's this idea of putting together a new plan for us to figure out what to do next. And so why do this? Why have a process like this? Because here's what Paul tells us that can happen. Philippians 4:8 says this. It's finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, and whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, what should we do? We should think about such things. See, sometimes when life is just being thrown at us, when we're living with this mess, we don't take time to really consider what is God's truth. And these are the things that you and I should be concerned with and want to put in our brains. Things that are right, things that are pure, things that are lovely. And what happens is that when we get all this mess, we stop thinking about these things. We just start worrying about these things. And these things distract us from these things. And so you and I, when we pause, we slow down, we begin to think about what the truth really is. And we take time to reflect in Scripture what's triggering us and what we can do about it. The next thing that Paul tells us that we should do once we take time to think about those things, to process those things, is that we need to process and plan. We don't just need to think about what we're experiencing or feeling. We actually need to put together a plan to help us get to a better place, because doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is known as the definition of insanity, right? And many of us live in that land all the time. We're just like, hope that gets better next week. I hope those emotions just go away. But most of the time they don't. And we have to figure out, how do we deal with the mess when life comes at us? And we have to create a plan and a process that helps us get to a better place. This is what Paul said. Philippians 4:9 says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. Don't just hear what I say. Don't just think that it's a good idea. Put these things into practice if you want to begin to get better. And those people were going through so much in that day, and Paul's just reminding them of the truth. Put these things into practice. Don't just listen to them, or don't expect everybody else to do them. What should you do to get to a better place? Carolyn Leaf talks about using this phrase when we get into those experiences. When I experience the physical trigger of blank, if it's anxiety from dealing with all the things that I have at work, Or maybe it's overwhelmed by the news that was given to me. When I feel the physical trigger of those things, I will tell myself what? I will tell myself that some of those things are not true. Some of those things I have to begin to give to God, whatever it may be, and then I'm going to choose to feel blank because of it. I'm going to choose to feel trust in God because of it. I'm going to choose to feel joy despite the anxiety that I'm experiencing. So maybe for you, a plan or process looks like maybe setting time to pray each day to God, to take your cares, your worries, your mess, and give it to God. Maybe that's how you need to start. Maybe for you, it's finding a small group. Grace shared about all the groups that are starting. What a great way for you to get around people to help you deal with what you're going through. Maybe for you, it is talking to a counselor or a doctor or a therapist to have somebody as a safe place to listen to the things that you're struggling with or going through. Maybe for you, it's reevaluating some things in your life. What's not working? Maybe it's a change of schedule. Maybe it's a change of stress. Maybe it's a change of jobs or management or career or different rhythms, whatever that may look like. Maybe certain things just aren't working for you where you're at in this season, and it's good for you to reevaluate those things. And maybe for you, it's time to stop hiding behind these emotions and finally start to figure them out. What do I do with this mess that I'm dealing with today? See, I was in this place last year. We had a lot going on here at the church. We had a lot going on in our personal life with our family. We were in one rental house and immediately had to go to another rental house because they were selling and the market was crazy. And we'd literally been here 5 years and still trying to buy a house. And it was just a lot to worry about as a dad and a provider and as a husband. And so I literally was getting in a tailspin of just constantly thinking about these things, over-worrying, overwhelmed by all these exterior things in my life to the point where I was like just overthinking everything. And I've always, as a pastor, encouraged people to see a counselor. But there's this guy that was one of my mentors, and he had like a leadership coach that he would meet with. And so I started meeting with him last year and just having conversations. Hey, man, this is what's going on. This is what it's like. I did more funerals last year than I've ever done in my pastoral career. And I'm noticing these things are affecting me way more than I thought they would. And he starts, listening to me, and he was great at listening. But what I loved is he didn't just leave me there. He's like, Trey, we got to work on creating a plan so when you get in these places where life gets messy and overwhelming, where you can begin to deal with it better. And he told me this phrase that has stuck with me ever since I started meeting with him. And this phrase, he told me, my plan for now is to change the channel. He's like, when you get overwhelmed, when you start thinking and dwelling on those things for too long, Trey, you got to learn to change the channel. And I'm like, easier said than done, bro, right? Like, can you come change the channel in my brain for me? Because I can't stop thinking about some of these stupid things like that are keeping me up at night. And he said, well, hey, pastors need pastors too. Let me point to you in the scriptures where I learned this from. And he took me to the book of Corinthians, and he began to share with me this. He says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And then he said this, we take captive every thought and we make it obedient to Christ. And so he said, Trey, when you find yourself worried, overwhelmed, anxious about what's going on, anxious about your life, your future, your family, whatever, I want you to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. Give it to God because you can't handle all of those things by yourself. And it was a great reminder for me. And now when I find myself in those moments where those anxious thoughts stir up, I go back to that phrase, Trey, change the channel. That's not the truth. Change the channel. And that's helped me. But that's the process that I've been through. I don't know what your process could look like or your plan, but I'm telling you, these things do come. And if you don't have a plan in place, what you thought you were controlling will now start to control you. And none of us want to be in that place. And so if you struggle with anxiety, those are some great tools to put into place. And lastly, Paul gives us kind of a weird thing to do. And at first, when I heard this, I was like, yeah, that's cool, Paul, maybe for you. But I think there is something valid to doing this. And the last thing he teaches us to do when we're covered in our mess is to praise. To praise. And I was like, well, what does that have to do with cleaning up our mess or worried about our anxieties? How does praising God help with any of that? But what I've learned over the years is when we praise God, we put the attention on God and not on us. We don't put our attention on the worries. We put our attentions on the person that can deal with those worries better than we can. And that's why when Paul's closing his letter to the church in Philippi, he says these words as the last big hoorah. He says, rejoice in the Lord always. And so much so, he says, I'll say it again, rejoice. And so when we find ourselves in moments where we're like, what do we do? God, where are you? God, I can't handle this. God, I didn't know life would be this hard. God, I didn't know I would get dealt this hand. God, I didn't know that this is what it was going to be like. But you know what? God, you're still good. God, you're still there for me. God, you're still bigger and better than anything I could ever imagine. And it says when we do this, this is the promise at the end, Philippians 4:9, and the peace of God, the God of peace, will be with you. Every single one of us. And that's what we're ultimately looking for, isn't it? We're looking for peace to get rid of our anxious thoughts. And not that they magically go away, but God's peace, which is bigger than anything that we could ever deal with, comes into our lives and gives us what we need to get through another day. And so I don't know what's going on with you today. I don't know what issues or thoughts or struggles that you're facing today, but I do know we all have our mess and things that life has given to us, and we don't know what to do about it sometimes. And my wife and I, it was funny, during COVID, we got hooked on the TV show Survivor. Anybody watch Survivor? Yeah, you guys are y'all are good people, okay? So y'all know about this addiction. Survivor is good. So we watched like every season during COVID because we didn't have anything else better to do. So we're stuck at home, we watched Survivor. So we keep up with it now. And this last season, if you haven't watched it, is so good. And there's this girl, she was teamed up with this team, and she's trying to be strong, right? She's trying to remain, this mighty person for her team and show up and do the challenges. Well, it came time for her to be honest with somebody on her team. And there's this guy, he's like this big firefighter guy, and she's like, hey, listen, I need to let you in on a secret. I don't want anybody to know about it yet, but I struggle with autism. And I've dealt with it my whole life, but there are moments in my autism where I get these panic attacks, and they come on when I get overwhelmed, and I just need you to know about them, and I just need you to be there for me if anything happens. And he's like, sure, whatever you need. So the season goes on. They actually end up getting split on two different teams. And so their teams are battling each other, and it's getting intense, right, on this episode. And all of a sudden you see this poor girl, she's a young girl trying to figure out this puzzle and all this stuff, and she's just, you could tell just the weight of it is coming over her life. And at the end of the challenge, she's just looking for her next breath, trying to calm down, and she just gets so overwhelmed, she gets so anxious, and she's literally like, can't control herself. And you see this guy that she exposed this secret to over on the other team just watching. And he's like eager to go help her. And finally, he looks at the host and he's like, can I go help? And the host is like, yeah. And so he runs over to her. And her thing was, can you just embrace me in these moments? And so he comes over and he embraces her, he holds her, and he begins to tell her things that she needed to be reminded of. Here's kind of what it looked like in this moment for her. And so she's crying, and he's holding her where she's at. And I just thought about this picture as I was preparing for today. This is what we need God to do in our moments, don't we? When we're overwhelmed, when we're anxious, when we don't know what to do, when we're like, God, I need help, God is looking on. And he's right there for us, and he wants to embrace us and help us and be there for us no matter what we're going through. And I just thought, what a great picture of what that looks like for you and I when we reach out to God, that he's right there with us, willing to give us this big bear hug and say, it's going to be okay. I got you. And that's what this man was just whispering to this young girl to remind her that she was okay. And today, I just wanted to remind you of that as well. No matter what you're facing, no matter what's got you anxious, no matter what keeps you up at night, that God's still there. Yeah, and it may be a little messy. You may not know how to express it, but God is right there with you. All he wants you to do is take whatever you're going through, whatever you're struggling with, and choose to give it to him. And so today, I've asked the band to come back out for the next few moments. And there's this song that came on recently called Battle Belongs. It's a song about God fighting every battle that we go through. And what I wanted to do is give you an opportunity, like Paul said, to put this into practice, to not just hear another message at church, but to literally have a moment with him. And around you are some tables here in Mechanicsville and Scottsville. All I'm going to ask you to do in the next few moments is there's some pieces of paper, some pens, and there's a little bucket like this. And what I'm going to ask you to do over the next few moments, whatever's got you worried, whatever's got you feeling so anxious, whatever's taken your mind off of God and onto your mess, I want you just to take a moment, take that card, and just write on it, God, here's what I'm going through. Here's what I'm struggling with. And I want you just for a moment to realize the weight of giving that over to God. And so I want you just to write it down on either side, back, front, whatever, and then just put it in that bucket as a symbol of giving it to God today, knowing that he's a big God and he can handle it. And so over the next few moments, I just want to give you that opportunity. There's tables all around for you just to have a moment with God. And if you're like, listen, I don't want to get up, that's fine too. I would love for you just to take a moment, listen to the lyrics of this song, that the battle you're facing and the battle I'm facing, that God is right there with us every step of the way. And so for a moment, let's just pray, let's pause, and let's put into practice what God teaches us to do when it comes to our lives and the anxiety that we feel. And let's go to him with what we struggle with today. Take the next few moments to be with him.